Hey guys, Craig Ferrand here. I'm the production director here at Heritage. I've been here a little over, I think, 12 years. And today I'm joined with Justin and David Magnus, the worship leaders here at Heritage, and we're going to have a little conversation. Obviously, you guys have been here at Heritage for years, since the beginning. And we hear the story of how Heritage started and how things kind of developed. And your dad was the worship leader here at Heritage from the get-go, and you guys were kind of on the stage from the get-go. But I don't know that I've ever heard it from your perspective of kind of how you got from being kids in the worship band to now being the worship leaders here at Heritage. So obviously, years ago, when Christian music was really happening here in Texarkana, I was in a band, you guys were in a band. What was that band back in the day?
Well, the first band we were in was kind of an alternative Christian rock band. Pretty funny to think back on. That was a three-piece band between a good friend of ours named Hayden Box. It was just the three of us. Justin was the drummer, I was a guitar player, and he played bass. And the name of our band originally was Covenant. It was a band that we had just kind of the classic, we talk about this a lot in Texarkana, that at that time there were a lot of kids in junior high that just wanted to be in a band, like me in a rock band, And we had obviously the influence of our church, and so we wanted to be like a cool local Christian rock band, and we, as a result, found other bands in Texarkana doing the same thing. So there was somewhat of a festival circuit, but local festivals, little things that would happen here in town, and that we'd kind of go do gigs and got to know other people, and we just kind of started out, really doing that as a kind of a rock and roll version of Christian band, doing
something we don't see now.
Right, doing original music that nobody really wanted to hear, but we just had fun doing it. So.
And how old were you guys at that age?
Well, honestly, my drumming history started basically because the church needed a drummer. There's probably about a dozen or two people that maybe will remember whenever I played the guitar. That was my first instrument.
I had no idea, actually. That's cool.
Dad was leading. We're at the Western store, and it was just him and my mom, and then they started wanting to try to get more of a full band and have instruments involved and kind of do things, I guess, more cutting edge at the time.
Sure.
Looking back on it, it was pretty rough, but I started out on guitar, as did David, and then I was awful at it. Really, really bad. I think they just turned me completely off. And so then I eventually was like, I don't want to do this. And so I kind of stopped the guitar. And then how it shifted to the drums was basically like, my dad was like, well, we need a drummer. Why don't you play the drums?
Right.
And they went, the church got this old Yamaha drum kit. I mean, it was bad. Like, it was not, it was like a just basic drum kit, and I had like a drum pad, and I was taking lessons. And so I was playing at the church.
I remember you taking lessons at Pro Sound back in the day. Yep.
So I was playing drums at the church before we even had one at the house to really practice. And so it was...
We kind of cut our teeth on it. There was one of those things, you had a church that started with 20-something people. And so it's like, hey, who can do what? Who can teach Sunday school to kids? Who can...
Yeah.
So Dad obviously played guitar. My mom played piano. I was kind of tinkering, and music was always an influence in our lives. And my dad and mom loved music, and so it was one of those things that it wasn't forced on us, but we just I remember wanting to play guitar because my dad kind of played guitar, and so I kind of learned through him, wanted to take lessons. It was things that we requested, as far as, Justin requested to play guitar too, so it was one of those things that, yes, he turned into a drummer,
so bad.
But it was one of those things that we just kind of...
Do you still have your guitar?
I do. It's a red Fender Duosonic. It's like a
awesome.
It's like a 3/4 length guitar. And it's in my closet right now. Maybe Oliver or Mary Claire want to play it. But I don't know if they make those things anymore, but it was pretty neat. And so then it just kind of morphed from that. The church was so young that we're able to kind of grow along with it,
Sure. Great time to cut your teeth too.
Yes.
When it's a church that's a startup, and so everybody's a little more forgiving, and it's it's a time that your performance or your engagement on the stage doesn't get questioned or judged
it's
hard.
It's not as intimidating.
Right.
It was intimidating to us, but then from being young kids on that side of the fence, where you see the leadership of a church who we're now the age that they were when the church started.
Right.
And so now it's like we get to see, we learned a lot of things that we weren't even really consciously focused on as young kids, seeing how leadership should be done, men and women taking the step in faith. And yeah, it may not be perfect, but we're here for a simple reason. You know, sometimes it gets so complicated and we add so much to it.
Right.
All for a good reason.
Right.
But just to think back on, I think that the simple times of just, you know, we're just here together. And yeah, we may not be perfect on this stuff, but we're here just to, you know, worship God. It's just kind of a cool, to look back on, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Make a joyful noise to a literal point.
Right. We may not hear the duosonic turned up very loud, but he's strumming on that.
He's strumming on it. Bless his heart. He's giving it all he's got, kind of thing.
So you guys come from the band side of things, like I said, like a lot of people did, you know. So you're in the band, you're doing that kind of stuff. I guess college kind of comes, and David, I know you go off to school first. Is the band still happening at this point? Or are we done?
Yeah, we kind of changed. We added some other people to play with us, some good close friends, some that were actually a part of the church band at the time. We had a new band name called Olive and Iron. I go to college as a freshman. We still do some gigs at that point, but it was just getting harder. I was involved in some other things, extracurricular activities, and it just kind of, it wasn't intentional, but just kind of slowly, our bass player went off to college the year after. And so it just kind of slowly fizzled out. Nothing that just kind of happened, kind of did. But we were still engaged. Justin, while he was in school, was actually a consistent drummer with other bands coming through Arkadelphia, where we went to school. And so he played with other bands outside of us, so.
Yeah, so I went off to college in 2007 and Washita, went to Washita Baptist. And that was a big, huge influence on me, on being around other musicians, on just seeing...
Lots of musicians at Washita.
Just seeing a different change. And really the Christian worship music sound changed a lot around that same period of time. You know, I was leading at the church with here all through high school and all that going into it. The music was very simplistic. And then I went to college, started playing with some other guys that were... you know, very good, and the whole sound started changing. It started getting more complex. So that was a lot of my growth that I was able to experience. And then we also kind of shifted around that same point in time, probably the worship sound at Heritage around the same time. We're always try to keep our ear to the new sounds that kind of come out and start kind of shifting our whole approach.
Right.
So it all kind of coincide together. And
you saw it across the board, even in Christian music, where these larger, you think of Hill songs and how their sound used to be versus kind of how it kind of shifted.
From Shout to the Lord to what we have now.
Right. So all that was at play at that time,
right.
You know, and so it's kind of cool to look back on that. Heritage had its kind of model shift and change. We saw the dynamics of other influences from our college experience, and then you kind of saw this kind of attraction happen. Worship music kind of became cool. Right. You know, I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but you kind of saw this shift from kind of corny, I mean, I hate to say that, but into more like, man, this is like, I'm connecting to this.
Right.
And so it's, and not that the old stuff wasn't, you know, I don't mean it that way, but there was a paradigm shift.
And I think us, because I'm in that same category as you guys are, I think for us, being in that moment, we understand the depth that worship can be, the connectiveness that it has with us. You know, like my wife, every morning she's got worship on. You know, she's not listening to the radio, she's listening to worship. And I think that that era and that time from where we came from, you know, spending 2 hours singing the same song to, you know, where it is now, it's been a huge transition. And it's been really cool to see. Mm-hmm. It really has. So you guys finished college, the band's kind of doing here and there kind of things. You're back at Heritage. I remember I was at Heritage, you were still in college. There were some guys playing drums here, and then you came back. You're back here at the church. We're still in the old room. Your dad's leading, and then we move in the new room. We get set up in here. He rolls for a few years, and Dad says, "It's time. I'm retiring." And I mean, I know you guys remember this, but at this point, all of us are saying, well, what are we going to do? You know? And so, yeah, there was a few different options and we did a few different things, but fast forward to David stepping up and saying, I feel like I want to do this. I want to take this position and want to run with it. How's it been? I mean, how's it been now that a couple of years in, you're the worship leader at Heritage? Is it what you thought it would be?
Yeah, yes and no. Like, I still don't consider myself like the worship leader. I really, really don't. Like, I tell people this all the time. Like, I'm fortunate that we're fortunate to have such a great team here, and that's a huge part of it. Seeing my dad throughout the years and kind of the time and all that he put into it, so I knew that part of it. But even seeing that and then showing up and being a part of the team for so long, playing the instruments that I played when I did, there's a whole different dynamic when it came to actually kind of facilitating the team, the people, the managing the people and connecting it. He told me going into it, this is a lot more than you think it's going to be. And it's not that I didn't think it was, but it's just when you're actually doing it, it took me a year or so of trying to build the team, which I knew I needed to do right out of the gate.
Right.
And then, kind of getting to where we are today, which I am very fortunate and thankful for. But I don't see it as me at all. And I really do see it as our team together. And I'm just kind of a part of it. And I'm very fortunate to have a great group of people. And that includes you and your team and the production guys. Like, nothing could be happening without the production team. And I know your crew is kind of like the offensive lineman of the football team. It's like, man, without these guys, but they don't get the.
Just bring us a breakfast burrito and a dozen donuts, and we're here.
But it's just one of those things that everything from the leadership with Matt that he provides for us, I think there's just so much here that allows us to kind of just be who we are.
Sure.
And all that was laid beforehand with Dad and the stuff so all we're doing is just continuing being a good steward of what that is, which is really just God's just mission and vision for what we have here.
Sure.
So.
And I think, what your dad did is he built a great foundation. And one of the benefits that he had is he had a lot of people who were very dedicated. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Very, very dedicated. And through the years, the band has shifted and changed from people coming in, people coming out, and things like that. But one of the great things that you've done is one thing we talked about in the early part of the get-go was we got to have a bench. We've got to have players. We've got to have people we can call and bring in when, we know your family likes to go on vacation together. And when, that's three people off the stage. And so we got to, and that's one great thing that's happened there. So what goes in to a Sunday morning from what you have Justin kind of do to what you take care of? Do you know the sermon series coming up? Do you know what's happening? What processes inside of you to say this song gets picked for this Sunday to go with that day? What's that process like?
That's been a learning curve for me to try to find a system that I can utilize real well. So currently, that system is, and Justin is always good about sending me music. He and I have a very similar approach to how we do this, so it's easy for us. I also am constantly reaching out to the team and saying, hey, if there's a song that you connect with, let me know. And so I'm kind of siloing away.
Should we put a number on the bottom of the screen that says, please text all songs?
Oh, gosh. Hey, would you mind, if you have your request, would you send it to me? No, so I'm kind of...
David Magnus at...
right. So I have a tentative playlist of things that a lot of time, most of them is Justin sending to me, and then and I'll send over to him ideas, and we kind of talk through song structure. Hey, this is cool. But it's really lyrics. It's not just, hey, this sounds neat. It's like, okay, there's some cool lyrics here. So this is kind of periphery stage one of just putting songs in my mind. And then would they connect with somebody? There's a lot of songs that we hear that either lyrically just don't connect with what we want. And so it kind of kills it. Or we may not be able to pull it off. There's some things we have to kind of know what our lane is and say, I'd love to do this. If we do, we need to tweak it. But as you know, I don't like to go too far away from the integrity of the song, otherwise I feel like we're kind of ruining it.
Right. Gyra runs that line for us.
It does, right.
It's
Gyra
like, that's a great song, and I want to be able to do it, but...
It's like right on it. We've had to kind of tweak that a little bit to where we could do it, but we're still right on the...
Yeah.
And so there's that version of just kind of putting in the content and being aware of that. But the vast majority of it, and I'll let Justin speak to this when I get to it, but the vast majority of what we do is, okay, what's the message Matt has in store? But what outside of the message that he's going to bring, which I touch base with him on, hey, what's your main key points here? I know you got a lot you're going to talk about. What's the driver I need to connect with?
Right.
Then I need to see who are my people.
Right.
So who do I have available that week? And we've got a dedicated team that I'm very fortunate to have. But sometimes, like everybody, they may not be here and out. So I need to make sure who's here before I can start building this up. And then if I can have one song that I know, whether it be a song from the past that we already have done, or maybe one of these new ones kind of floating around. I never want to do more than one new song a week if I do.
Remember that song?
I did do that one time. I won't do that again. But it's one of those deals that, so I try to have that one anchor song, and in a perfect world, I can have some songs that complement that.
Sure.
Or even drive to the point that may not take the main point, but they kind of prop up that main point and give us something to tell a story about during the set. Because our whole point is how can we, as people come in on Sundays, carrying a distraction, a concern, maybe they're just, their life's crazy. So they're coming in here, coming through these walls. How can we start breaking down and kind of washing away into the distraction so that through that set, we're building up to the ultimate message that either Matt's bringing, that the songs lead them to, that just kind of lets all the distractions and the stuff fall away. The burdens, the concerns, the worries, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the goal. It's not about us. It's not about how we execute it.
Right.
But we want to make sure that it flows well enough and that it's smooth enough that there's no distraction. We're just up there playing music and hopefully disappearing as people just give praise to God. And that once I kind of have that structure that typically Jess and I are talking about, and you honestly, we bring Craig in to do like hey, we want to maybe talk here, pray here. How do we connect this? And so the three of us kind of help frame that. And then I pass it off to Justin to do kind of he builds our sets each week. And so he builds the structure and puts them in place. Once I kind of pass the ball off to him, he kind of builds all that on the flow side of it.
Right. So, what do you do? Well, I mean, what?
Yeah.
When
it builds it.
Yeah. When he's for the people sitting in the back that don't know, what's your process? What do you have to get done?
Well, there's we run tracks, and we kind of have what we call like the man behind the curtain. We have a software that we use that has all the songs we play that we can download. It has certain sounds that we can't play from an instrument standpoint. It has other
string instruments,
stuff like that. It has a guide track. There's a voice telling us like the different parts of the song when they're coming, so we all kind of know where we are. And there's like pad sounds and stuff that kind of flows from song to song. So I kind of build that. He sends the set list out. I download the songs on the software, and then I make sure it kind of flows. And I make recommendations as far as like, hey, this might be a good spot to loop. Or if you want to loop here, let me know. You can talk as long as you want, and I can reach over and kind of fire it. And then, so that's huge.
Have you ever had to turn that off on a Sunday?
Oh, never. We never get off. We never, ever get off. If you, they always make jokes that I'm quick to turn it off.
People don't realize how much is actually Justin's in control of on. Like once we hit go on Sunday, Justin's really
it's not you, it's him. It's him.
I'll tell him I'm gonna give you a couple seconds to get back on. I'm gonna
normally if you hear
I'm gonna pull the plug.
Yeah. Well, normally when you hear that hi-hat coming in, it's like okay, he's gonna give you a couple of those, and then we're pulling the plug.
So, but it's such a benefit and such an advantage to be able to have the software like that to use. It makes us sound better. It keeps us all on the same page. It gets us back on track if we were to get lost.
Yeah.
Well, also as a leaders, if you're leading a song, it takes away that thinking and allows us to kind of relax a little bit.
Sure.
If we hear that, hey, we're going into verse 2 now.
Yeah.
And so, and most people don't realize this, but when you're up on that stage and the speakers are out in front of you and we're running through the way that we have, we can't really hear it's not like when you're growing up or in the garage band like we had where you're just blaring it, you can hear everything.
Foot on the monitor, playing Creed, just rocking out.
So there are things that we don't really get to experience upstage as far as the sound because of the way that it is. So we need that to kind of give us the comfort level to say, hey, I know where we are in the song. And if not, Justin will typically get us where we need to be on that. And so that's all kind of going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Do you guys see the people in the room on Sunday? I know that's a weird question, but being on the stage and you talk about disappearing, but can you see folks in the room?
I see a few people. I can kind of, I see a few, but not for the most part. I know I kind of zone out.
Right.
I kind of zone out during the set when we're playing it. Once I know, I just kind of, with the drums, there's about 3 different parts to a song.
Right.
And so I know your parts, and then I just kind of get in a rhythm, and then I have the guide track kind of talking me along through it. Sometimes I'll look up and not even realize we're in song 2 over here, and just kind of.
People may not know this, but Justin does not have a practice kit at the house.
Right.
And so he literally shows up, and we always kind of laugh about it, on Sunday mornings, or if we have rehearsal that night, with all the parts somehow logged in. I don't know if he's sitting in his house doing this.
No.
And it's just like, okay, here we go. Listen to it.
I think it's somebody who's played drums for 20 plus years, right?
I've been doing it a long time now, looking back on it. And so I can, for the most part, and to be fair, it's a lot of the music's pretty cut and dry. There's a few parts. If I get lost on it, I'll get on YouTube. Yeah, I'll get on YouTube and I'll start.
Make it Justin's version.
I'll look into it and try to figure it out, listen to it the best I can. Well, we all, across the board, we all try to play the songs like they're recorded.
With the integrity, yeah.
My dad was a big proponent of that. You know, a lot of folks will kind of go in there and try to make it their own. We make it our own as far as like how we play music.
Sure.
But as far as like the rhythm and the guitar parts and all that, it's like, don't recreate the wheel.
Right.
The main hooks of the song, what you may hear on the radio, let's not change. Let's not move too far away from the structure of that.
Right.
So.
And I think, you know, I'm obviously involved in some of this process too. And I think that one of the big things that we've always tried to do is we try to funnel the music into Matt. It's supposed to drive a point home that, you know, we just sang about grace, we sang about mercy, we sang about this, and this is what he's speaking about today. So, you know, no joke here, but a lot of times it's the second or third song before the room kind of fills up on Sunday. People are dropping kids off and people are busy and get to church early. Just kidding. Not really.
Seriously.
But seriously. But we try to drive the message and the music together to get to a place where it clicks with somebody. And it's funny because, you know, we've done secular songs here in the room, and there's people that I know. I had somebody just tell me a couple weeks ago, they said, we went to Heritage and we walked in and you guys were playing Bon Jovi. Mm-hmm. And my husband thought, that's cool. That's cool. And so we never know, as you were kind of saying, we never know what someone's going through on a Sunday and how a song can affect and touch someone, you know, if they've lost a loved one, if they're struggling with something. You know, even from, you know, your dad kind of going through some loss and things like that, and seeing him sing those songs, and you can just feel the emotion and the praise and the worship to God in those moments. So,
well, it's just, you know, it's not about us. We always say that a lot. Our team does, but the reality is we may do a song that we've done a million times that we kind of let this stage and thought, hey, you know, just something didn't feel right about that. And then we get a message from somebody that says, hey, my sister was here, which just recently happened. Yeah. My sister was here and she was going through some struggles and was beginning to doubt whether she could continue to avoid temptation, and the song encouraged her in that moment. It's like, so you never know what people are going through.
Right.
And it's always a great reminder that this is not about us performing. Yes, we always push for excellence, but it's always a great reminder that it's not about us. Like, it's just about being here, worshiping God, being authentic and genuine. Yeah. And that's why it's so important for people to lead songs that they connect with. This is something that I was taught. It's one thing to have a song that's great. It's another thing that musically sounds good. But if you can have somebody, and this is a special thing, leading a song that means something to them, right, there's just something about it. And the really cool, I can't put my finger on a time, like a specific moment to say that, hey, this one time leading worship was the best. But it's in those moments that we've all experienced them where it's like, this is just, it's hitting on all cylinders and something out of our control. This is just a special moment. This is great. The ones that I do recall, like very detailed, are the ones where we mess up. You know, like if I sang a song, which I've done, I still think about this. It's probably 5 years ago. I started singing a song in a completely different key. I don't know how or why, but I just started singing the song. Like those are the moments, because it's made it about me. Right. That I can think about. But it's the moments that are especially the ones where it's not about the individual. It's just about, hey, we're just rolling. I mean, we even had times where we do have to stop the set. We laugh about it. But oftentimes people come up to us and we're kind of going, oh my gosh. And people come to us, you know what, that was cool. It's like y'all just bounce off. It's like, it's cool to see that, hey, you know what, things like this happen. You go with it. It's really not about it.
And it's not a performance,
Right,
it's worship.
exactly.
And we're going to get it. Let us try to get it right. Let's do this again.
You know, let's just hold on. It's funny because we'll go, whoa. Everybody's like, you can tell they're kind of shocked. They kind of go, okay, it breaks barriers down. It just goes, hey, these are real people.
Yeah.
You know, we're all real people.
Yeah. I think that you guys will remember this. And when we talk about moments that happened here at Heritage, for me, probably the moment that was most special happened on a Thursday night. It didn't even happen on a Sunday morning. It didn't. And I think you guys were here. You had to be back in your bass playing days. But I believe your dad had just lost his sister. And he came out on the stage and started playing Crowder. And it was just, you know, generally we get into worship, we get in rehearsal, everybody's playing, everybody's kind of going, and your dad just came out and he was the worship leader at this point and just started just kind of strumming. And then this guy picked it up a little bit and you guys just worshiped. You know what I mean? And it was just, for me, it was like, okay, I'm done. Let's just not even do anything else. Let's just go home. It was a special moment.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because I mean, it's bigger than we are.
Right.
You know, it's not, we get in the habit of showing up with the structure. Okay, I know we're all tired. We're getting here after work. Again, we're all volunteering anyway. Nobody's full time with this.
Right.
We all have families and jobs and things that we're doing. And the team is deliberate about showing up.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go. And so you can also kind of get in the rut of that. Okay, get here, we got to do that. And I'm bad about this.
Right.
But it's in those moments where it's like, you know what this is really about is worship.
Is worship.
You know, we're fortunate to be a part of this team to get to do this. And so those are special moments when you have them. You can't force that. You can't fake that. It just happens.
Yeah.
And so
it's special.
It is.
It's real special. And, you know, we have a production meeting every week. And after the band rehearses on Sunday, we all meet together. And a few weeks ago, we were in there and I don't remember what the topic was, but Matt asked the question, well, what is worship? Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, but that is just kind of, well, what is worship? Mm-hmm. I mean, is it just singing? Is it? And I'm like, God, it is so much more. Mm-hmm. It is healing. You know, if you're going through a struggle and sometimes just that song and those lyrics and those moments just speak to you. You know what I mean? And I think that's a lot of what it is we don't see what happens in the room. It's not like a light bulb goes off and it's this person's getting it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But on a Sunday morning, when you have those people approach you and say, I needed that song right there, I needed that. It's powerful.
The one that looks different with everybody, you may have somebody there with their hands in their pockets and you think, man, it's not much. And I can't see past like the second row normally. And I don't really pay much attention anyway. But sometimes people can get caught up in, wow, this person's really, and you really can't judge it by that. We shouldn't. It's just one of those. Now, don't get me wrong. It is fun those nights, especially those nights at work, or even those Sundays where you can just feel the energy. People are just relaxed or letting it go. And those are fun. And that is, I mean, everybody enjoys that. Don't get me wrong.
And there are moments when you can hear the crowd sing. When it's a song everyone knows and everybody's into it and you guys, I mean, we're in the booth, we're doing, and it's like, listen to that crowd. I mean, it
just creates when God's people are, when you can feel that, there's just something about that. Yeah. I'm not going to deny. I mean, it's the real deal.
100%. So lots going on. We're obviously, this is a whole new process that we're doing. Obviously, the interview section here and kind of, as I said to you guys earlier, we don't know what this is going to turn into, but we're just going to have a conversation. But looking forward, next year, 2023 is right around the corner. What are your goals? What are your thoughts on what you can see happening here at Heritage? What do you want to see different? What do you want to try to do? Is there anything specifically, or is the ship just sailing on?
Yeah. One of the things that I struggle with on this a lot.
I got him with that one.
Well, I think about this a lot, and it's one of those things that, everybody sits. Honestly, I keep struggle with how far can I push it? Not how far can my team handle. I've got a great team, but it does make me wonder a lot. Where I'm like, how far am I willing? How far not am I willing? Am I capable of taking this? And what should that look like? And so I spend a lot of time thinking. And again, since it's not my full-time gig, I mean for that to be an excuse. I don't know at all. But it's like so I'm trying to balance the work the business I manage every day just is the same. Everybody else on our team, everybody's doing something else throughout the day. And to make sure that I spend time to deliver a talk about the Vision Cast and to push forward on what that is. Also, I got a family, of course. And so, but one of the things that keeps coming back to me every time I think about this, and you and I talked about this, Justin, as well, is connection. Almost, it's not about the lots. It's not about all the things.
100%.
It's not about the music or the how cool it sounds.
Who's on the stage? What?
No.
Yeah.
It's like, how can we connect with people? In the world that we're in now, I feel like one of the most important things that we can deal with, it was the same when we talked about our vision for the first of the year, I feel the same about next year, is how can we tell stories? How can we connect with people? Move the needle? Because anybody can find anything entertaining. And I think people are over that. Not to mention, we want to be, but the point is, like, when it comes to this, they want something that they can take. And we talk about the songs. It's like, if they hum a song because it's sticking in their head that reminds them of the spiritual truth that Matt talked about, that's a win.
Right.
If there's somebody in here that's discouraged because the enemy is lying to them and they're struggling to renew their mind to the truth of who they are because they keep getting pulled into that lie, and they sing a song like Fear is Not My Future that we just sang this past or week before last that says, no, that's not me, I'm not that anymore, that's a win.
Right.
And we can't control that. So as leaders, we're just up there and we're a part of what's happening, what God's doing, but He's the one that's watering those seeds. And so, like, the more I take myself out of the picture and the more I take the production and everything else outside, not to make light of it, the more encouraging it is to me to know that, hey, I'm just a small part of what God's doing, and I'll be a good steward of it while I'm here. And when that time's over, it's over.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but as far as 2023, it's just a matter of how can we continue to connect with people. And if this helps us do that through these stories, I think people connect to the story. And so whether it's on stage, whether it's through song, whether it's through a video, however,
Right.
to do that.
Right. Yeah, and we learned that from the Sunday that we broke it all down and everybody kind of shared what their favorite song was and took time. We had, great response to that on a Sunday. So I totally agree. I think that in 2023, there'll be some fun, exciting things happening. We've got, as you have a great team, I feel like I've got extremely dedicated team, those guys back in the sound booth. Our video department's always, here and taking care of what needs to be done. It's just exciting anytime I get to this time of year, it's exciting to look to the future and go, what's next? God, what are you going to do for us next? What's going to happen? So, guys, thanks for joining me today. It's special to sit down with you. You're dear friends, and love you guys. And thanks for coming out.